all pretend. The smiles, the lies, the perfect end. The world's a stage, they run the flow. You clap on cue down in the front row. A final shade.
Welcome, guys and gals. Hope everyone's having a wonderful evening this afternoon. Bear with me a little bit. I got my ribs injured last night doing some training at the gym, so if I seem like I'm out of breath, that's why. So just bear with me as we go through this. I want to dig more into the Epstein stuff, but first I want to take a step back and just talk about why we are doing this podcast. Okay. So the whole idea was that I seen right after Charlie Kirk had been shot, I seen that there was a huge divide, not only between left and the right, between the white and the black, but like there's all kinds of division. And I myself was adding to that division. And so I sit back and I came to a realization that we are letting the system play out exactly how it's designed in dividing us. And it makes us extremely hateful. I was becoming extremely hateful. I didn't like the person that I was becoming. So I thought, what could I do to maybe teach a little bit, have a little bit of history, have a little bit of fun, and start reconnecting with people that I had pushed away and they had pushed me away. So that was the whole purpose of my idea for this particular podcast and the way that it's set up. The other thing that I wanted to do was to kind of bring back some critical thinking, in that I don't think as a society, as individuals, we are challenged enough daily to think about why things are set up the way that they are, and how we kind of add to that. So I'm having some issues with my headset or not. So let's jump into this. Okay. So we're going to jump more into the Epstein stuff, and this is called the architecture of silence. We're going to talk about power, protection, and the island pattern, because there is a pattern throughout history here. And so for years, the story of Jeffrey Epstein was framed as a scandal, because this isn't something that's just new. Like, he had been arrested a while back, right? So we had a shocking fall. We had this mysterious financier. We had the idea of a private island. But history repeats itself. Not fully, but in little innuendos along the way, right? And if we zoom out, if we really zoom out, we can see that this is not just an anomaly. It's just not a one-off. There is patterns here. And so tonight isn't about villains, it's about insulation. Because the most dangerous people in history were not the most secret, they were the most protected. Okay? This is Breaking the System, episode 33. So let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Let's go back and retell some of the stories, and then we're going to talk about some other people throughout history, because I bet there's a lot of you that don't know that this is a reoccurring pattern throughout history, because a lot of us, especially with reading the files, we're like, oh my God, how could this happen? How could our government let this happen? How could we, the people, let this happen? It's happened before. And if we don't change as a people within, it most definitely will happen again. Okay? So stay with me here. So Epstein was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. And we know that there's no elite family lineage. There's no inherited fortune. We talked about how he worked briefly as a math teacher at Dalton School in Manhattan before working with Bear Stearns in the late 1970s. But by the 1990s, he presented himself as a financier to the billionaires, to the elite, right? He owned a Manhattan townhouse worth over $50 million, a Palm Beach estate, a ranch in New Mexico. That's an interesting one, right? Look at that one. A Paris apartment, and of course, Little St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And in 2005, the Palm Beach police began investigating allegations that Epstein had sexually abused underage girls, and that's the big one. And in 2008, he secured a controversial non-prosecution agreement with federal prosecutors in Florida. He pleaded guilty to state charges of soliciting prostitution from a minor and served 13 months in a county jail, and much of that was what they considered on a work release. So federal charges were avoided. Potential co-conspirators were shielded in this said agreement, and victims were not informed beforehand. And so this agreement would later become a flashpoint in the national debate. If we jump ahead to July of 2019, Epstein was arrested again on federal sex trafficking charges, this time in New York. And in August of 2009, he supposedly died while awaiting trial. And his death was ruled as a suicide, as we know. Okay, so this is where we're going to zoom out. The real story is not just what he did, it's how long he operated with access to people like presidents, billionaires, royalty, scientists, and cultural elites. And that's, like we've talked about before, that is the extremely scary part. All the people that he had access to. And when we dig into the files, it's all of these conversations. Not that these things really happened, but just the idea that these conversations were happening. That should scare the living shit out of you. That these conversations were and are happening between the billionaires and the royalty and the people of royalty and scientists and what we consider these cultural elites like Hollywood, musicians, singers, artists, all of these things, because they do influence and affect us, okay? So when we pull back, this is where history repeats, okay? Let's talk about a person that probably most of you don't know, and that is Francis Duffield Sheldon. This is the island that happened before Epstein's Island. Decades before Epstein, there was Francis Duffield Sheldon. He was born into a wealthy Detroit area family. He was Yale educated and he was socially connected. And in the 1970s, Sheldon owned North Fox Island in Lake Michigan. And on paper, he ran a tax-exempt entity called Brother Paul's Children's Mission. Oh, that's pretty convenient, right? Nothing funny going on here. Except there was. Allegations later alleged the mission was a front for the exploitation of boys flown to the island via his private aircraft. And in 1976, law enforcement raided North Fox Island. Sheldon then fled the United States before he could be arrested. He soon moved and settled to the Netherlands, and he supposedly died in 1996 in Amsterdam. He was never extradited, and he was never tried in a U.S. courtroom. So let's pause there. What do these guys have in common? Private island, private aircraft, horrible with pronunciation. Philanthropic cover. Yes, I probably butchered the living hell out of that. He was insulated by the elites, both of them were, and escape before prosecution. Of course, Epstein didn't escape. He was offed, so they say. Right? And that's where history repeats itself. Let's zoom even further back. Let's go to the medieval times. Let's look at Gilles de Rais, R-A-I-S. And he was not a French criminal. He was a marshal of France. He was considered a national hero, and he was a companion of Joan of Arc. Born in 1405, he was one of the wealthiest nobles in Brittany. After military campaigns, allegations then started to emerge that he abducted, assaulted, and murdered numerous children. And for years, no one intervened. So we ask, why? And also think of the time period. Why? Why did no one intervene? Well, because accusing a marshal of France was not just a legal risk, it was political destabilization. Even though he was eventually arrested in 1440 after financial disputes weakened his protection, so the elites stopped protecting him, right? The people that had money stopped protecting him. Okay? And he was then tried and executed by hanging and burning. Maybe we should bring those things back. Just saying. Okay? So he wasn't stopped by morality. And we've talked about morality in some of the other podcasts, and there is a lot of absentness in morality in society and within ourselves lately. He was stopped when his financial shield cracked. And looking at some of the people and the accusations that are starting to come out with Epstein, has this financial shield cracked for some of these people? And like another person that was talking on Facebook earlier today, are these people going to start turning on each other? Are they going to start theoretically eating each other? Okay, not like they eat the babies, but theoretically eating each other and turning on each other and turning each other in. That could happen as well, because that happened with this guy. Okay. Let's jump to the 20th century in Britain. Let's talk about Sammy Savile, S-A-V-I-L-E. He was a BBC presenter for decades, knighted in 1990, awarded charity honors. He was a friend of the prime ministers and members of the royal family. That's where the connections come into play. And after his death in 2011, investigations revealed he had abused hundreds of victims across hospitals, schools, and in the BBC facilities. Multiple institutions had prior complaints. The BBC, the NHS, the police departments. So why did it not stop sooner? Why didn't somebody stand up. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. He was seen as a national treasure. Authority bias protected him. Institutional fear protected him. Reputational management protected him. Okay? So he's got protection. That's the insulation that we're talking about, right? Because nobody stepped up, right? And even in the Epstein case, there was a lot of people that stepped up. But why wasn't something done about it? Okay? We don't know. We honestly don't know. Is that the way that the system is designed? Like, because we, the little guys, were nobody, right? Is it going to take somebody of the elite status to step up and start stopping other elite individuals? I don't know. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals. I'm making you critically think about these things. Okay? So then we jump to Hollywood, and one of the more famous recent ones, Harvey Weinstein, co-founder of Miramax. He had Oscar power, right? He was a broker in that. He was a theoretical career maker. Like, he could literally make your career just by working with him and for him. And for decades, allegations circulated quietly until 2017, investigative journalism broke open this particular story. And he was later convicted in New York in 2020 and sentenced to prison. Though aspects of that conviction have faced appeals and retrials in subsequent years, because, of course, these guys have money and they can appeal and appeal and appeal, right? So Weinstein's weapon was not isolation, it was access. He was gatekeeping of power, right? If I wanted to become somebody famous within the Hollywood spectrum, I could go through him. He was that gatekeeper of power, that he could give me some of that power within Hollywood. Okay? And let's be honest, power creates silence. The more power that you have, the more that you're able to silence your opposition across the board. Okay? Now let's look at the Franklin scandal. In the late 1980s, allegations surfaced around Lawrence E. King Jr., a Nebraska political fundraiser. He was convicted of financial fraud unrelated to abuse allegations. Grand juries dismissed many abuse claims as a hoax. However, controversy remains due to conflicting testimonies and investigation reporting. So let's be clear of this. Some allegations were unproven, some were dismissed, and some civil cases were settled. And this matters, because breaking the theoretical system is about structural analysis, not rumor repetition. Like, we don't want to repeat rumors, right? I want to find or try to find factual information that we can start making patterns off of, okay? And so the pattern here is political proximity, the networks of the financial, institutional confusion, and public distrust. Okay? So when we start seeing this structural pattern, what's next? So across centuries and across industries and across countries, we have military prestige, we have wealth and isolation, we have media celebrity, we have political fundraising, we have cultural gatekeeping, all different costumes, all the same architecture. They had authority bias, reputation shielding, institutional hesitation, legal complexity, non-disclosure agreements, and there was a delayed reaction or delayed action in all of them. Okay? And so here's the part that nobody likes to talk about. Institutions are risk adverse. Take down a powerful individual and it destabilizes networks. So systems, what do? Systems are put into place to delay. And delay becomes silence, and silence becomes this insulation. Right? Because think about this. If this administration had not released these files, do you honestly, without a doubt, with everything else going on, think that we would be talking about Epstein and all the people that's connected to him? And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that answer would be no. That none of this would be brought to light. Because time and silence creates this massive delay, and that becomes this insulation, this protection for these types of people. And that's the way the system is designed. Not saying that is right, I'm saying that's the way that it's designed. And be honest with yourself, that is the way that it is designed, okay? So when we look at these cases involving minors and often cross jurisdictions, okay, we have local law enforcement, we have federal agencies, we have international boundaries, we have civil settlements, we have sealed records, and every layer adds friction, and friction protects the powerful. Not necessarily through conspiracy, but through the complexity. And that complexity in itself is the shield. The way these systems are designed are to be extremely complex and to basically play the waiting game, in that whatever the new thing is that will take our mind off of this stuff for long enough and we completely forget about it, right? We completely forget about it, we sweep it under the rug, and we move on to the next big whatever news story that hits us across all of our feeds, right? That's the way the algorithm and the system works, okay? So Epstein is supposedly dead. Seville is dead. Sheldon died abroad. Weinstein faced prosecution, and Reyes was executed centuries ago. And yet, the pattern persists. The pattern keeps going. So here's the question. Is the system failing when powerful men evade accountability? Or is it operating exactly as it's designed, prioritizing institutional stability over moral clarity? And therein that comes that word, moral. Right? The moral clarity. Are you morally clear right now? Are you? Or are we hiding in the background because if we know that we actually burn everything down, that the institutions would crumble, and we're scared of what's next? Because if everything falls, what does society look like? And that can be extremely scary. I think there's a reason there's a lot of men, like actually alpha men, that don't stand up. Like, why are we not standing up and protesting a march to a state capitol or Washington, D.C.? As a collective, if we are this pissed off about Epstein and all the people that are supposedly connected to this, and if we really want to burn the system down, why are we not peacefully, and that's the word, peacefully collecting and marching on the Capitol? We're not. Instead, we're too busy arguing about what defines a woman, if women or if men can become women, if we should have closed borders, if we should have voter ID. Do we have white on black hate? Do we have black on white hate? There's so many things that's dividing us. And that's the way the system, the institution is designed. So if we burn down all of the institutions, what would have to change in that process? Transparency laws, prosecutorial incentives, media coverage, cultural differences to wealth. Because until the incentive structure changes, history's going to repeat itself. It's going to. There will be, and I'm sorry to say this, but there will be another version of these people. There will be another Harvey Weinstein. There will be another Epstein. There will be another whoever that is doing these horrific things until there is an incentive for the system to change, for this structure to change. And that starts with morals and values. And we're not getting those because of the family dynamic that we talked about the other day. All of these things are connected, okay? And once you see the architecture, you can't unsee it. Thanks for joining us. This is Breaking the System. You guys have a pleasant night, and we'll see you later.